One thing that comes up for me when I'm implementing change, when any business is implementing change, is kind of like almost like a rollout period, right? There's that transition, and you need to be thoughtful about what is that transitionary period. What does it look like? I like to call it a ramp, right? So we're basically ramping towards a new program, but that ramp might actually take some time. Some changes, those quick hitting ones, happen overnight, and we're going to talk about that too. But these larger changes, maybe you're implementing it over the course of 90 days or at least 3 weeks, or maybe it's 6 months to fully move through a new program. And so if you're putting a new plan in place, you've got to make sure you understand the ramp, and then there's milestones for different periods of the ramp. So you understand, here's what our ideal scenario is. I'd love for this change to take place over the next 3 weeks. In the meantime, we're going to be testing things out. I want a lot of feedback. I'm going to give you a lot more grace about making mistakes because I know this is new. You're just getting used to it. But by the end of this 90 days or 3 weeks or however long that ramp period is, I need to know that everyone's in line with the new rules, the new policies, procedures, and technologies. Along with that, sometimes you kind of have to take one bite of the apple at a time. And so maybe you're actually only implementing part of the program to start, just to make sure people aren't overwhelmed. And then you're going to introduce another part, next week, and then another part the week after that. And so we're going to slowly over time move this ship in the right direction. A lot of times, kind of like when, a person wants to come up with New Year's resolutions, right, Mike? And they sit down, they're like, well, I'm going to work out, 6 days a week. I'm going to change my diet. I'm going to spend this much time with my family. I'm going to only take cold showers. And it's just like, wow, you weren't doing any of these things. And now you're going to do 17 different things every single day, huh? I don't know if that's really going to work for you. You might want to rethink that strategy. And the same thing can be applied to a business where it's like you're trying to change so many things overnight. Your people are confused as hell, to be honest, right? They're just like, I don't know which way is up. I don't know which way is down. Everything that Mike taught us to start is no longer true. And I'll be honest, those job ads that I keep getting, asked about on LinkedIn, they're starting to look a little bit more enticing. And I don't really know if I want to stay here. So that's what comes up for me in terms of like ramping and then not overwhelming people. Mike, what comes up for you?
And that confusion brings chaos, and that's what you want to avoid. So there are these touch points. This constant communication is really important. And I'm going to ask you the question. I'm going to say what I want to say, but I want you to answer. It's like, how do you know they're qualified at each of those benchmarks? So I want you to marinate on that question. But one of the things that I think about is promoting and telling them this is the desired outcome. This is the big picture of what the end result looks like. They need to be reminded of what is that end result consistently. So it's like, this is what we're getting towards. And then it's like, this is the MVP, the minimum viable product that we want to make sure, because this minimum viable product that we get done will still create positive change in the organization that will move us closer. So like the MVP on each of those benchmarks or each of those milestones. So how do you know if your staff or these individuals are actually like capable of doing or like actually incorporating some of this change, or they've learned the skills necessary for the change, or they're following through on that change? What shows up for you on that one? I'm curious.
Yeah, totally. So two things come up. One is having some sort of certification process, right? Too often this change management is a little too informal. And don't get me wrong, if it's like you and one other person and that's how you run your business, maybe you don't need to like, okay, now I'm going to quiz you on all the changes and I need you to fill out this test that I made on Google Forms or something. If you don't get at least an 85%, like I'm firing you tomorrow. I'm not saying you have to get like that. But especially if you're trying to scale and you're trying to make changes at scale, when you do that, actually kind of testing or certifying someone or recertifying them, I kind of think about it like a financial planner or an accountant who has to keep their licenses up to date, or a real estate agent. You have to go to these continue education classes and stuff to make sure that you're always up to date on the latest laws or the latest updates to the penal code or whatever it is that you do. That's very formal. If you're in the insurance space, you got to keep your licenses up. And so, people should be keeping their licenses up for your internal operations, right? How well do they actually know the policies and procedures that in terms of like the if-then statements and the rules of how your organization runs? Or are they kind of flying by the seat of their pants? Or did they learn really well, when they started 3 years ago, but now, their certification is outdated. So you might want to think about that. Just as an example, when we used to run the mobile gaming support for Clash of Clans, and Supercell is the publisher, but all their games, basically, we ran all their support. So we had about 400 people or so just on their project. So when they changed the policy, we had to get that information out to 400 people, right? Of course, we can send an email. We can shoot a chat in Slack or Teams or WhatsApp or whatever the communication tool of choice is. But how do you actually know that those 400 people, A, even opened the email and read it, and then B, actually understood what it said and are actually implementing it? And so the only way to do that is to have continued certification that comes on from time to time, especially when there's wholesale changes that are made. The second thing is just you continuing to reinforce things and kind of like be the cop, right? You kind of have to have some enforcement and you have to check in, especially early on, so that people know you mean business, right? And when I make a change, I'm going to be kind of a little bit of a jackass to people, and I'm going to be like, hey, we just changed this. I know it's new, but you need to get it right. And I'm going to be a little bit more anal retentive about are they actually following it until I'm confident they are. And then maybe I'll, ease back a little bit and turn my attention elsewhere. So those two things come up for me. What are your thoughts, Mike?
Yeah, it's interesting because we're navigating through, like I said, a couple of these changes. And at one of the department meetings this week specifically, I called a role play. I was like, all right.
Oh, you put them on the spot, huh?
I put them right on the spot. I said, you have a couple of these conversations tomorrow. Let me hear how you are having those conversations. Go ahead and pull up your outline, and I'm just going to be a fly on the wall. You talk to Jess, and just kind of let me hear. And it was a good quality control. It was a good quality control. Number one, for her to find, she had to find the outline. It wasn't like just on the browsers. I was like, oh, okay, so it's not something that she might have been using all the time, right? And then through the conversation of role play, what does this show? This shows that, number one, I'm in the know of what she knows. Number two, I didn't reprimand her at all. I took responsibility for it, and I said, I apologize. I apologize that this was confusing, that this wasn't clearly laid out. So let's clearly lay it out, so that way, if I do a quality control in the future, there's no confusion at all. So we put a whole new policy and document together and typed everything out. I said, how do you feel about this going into tomorrow? It's like, oh, I feel so much better. It's like, great. We'll follow up next week. We'll see how those go. And also send me some updates on WhatsApp after each of those conversations. Another example for one of the other departments, I said, what is the policy if we're going to excuse someone or accept someone? Do we have that in writing somewhere? We might. It's like, cool. Let's make sure that's in writing. So next time I never have to reprimand. I never want to reprimand the person. I want to reprimand the policy or refer back to the policy. So if something's not getting done, it's like, it's in writing. So we went through, we created a document, and it's in writing. I said, is there any questions on this? Again, I apologize for any confusion that was put into place. Is there any confusion moving forward? No, this is cool. We'll refer back to this each week just to make sure we're on the same page. And now we have it in a document, and then we sent it also to our communication channel in WhatsApp. And then at one point, maybe in the next few days, I might just say, thank you so much for helping us navigate through these changes in our organization. It's for the betterment of our organization. This is what we're building towards. Thank you so much. This is going to create positive change beyond you. I want you here forever, but there's a chance you might not be here forever. So the legacy, a lineage that you're going to leave behind is going to be felt when you're not here. So thank you so much for taking this seriously and bringing that into the conversation. Again, leading with the end in mind, bringing it to the present, and managing them through that ramp like you were talking about.